The best thing about growing herbs at home is that you can be generous with them. Use them with abundance. And that's so much better than just using a pinch of this or a sprig of that. I think herbs look fantastic on their own, and you should try and have some herbs growing by the back door, so when you need them you can just pop out and cut them really fresh. And we used to grow them in our little London backyard. You can grow them really easily in pots or windowsill. But actually here in this house they would have had a herb garden since medieval times, not just for the kitchen but for the medicines and also strewing herbs. They would have put them on the floor to keep the air smelling sweet. Sarah and I limit our herbs to those we use in the kitchen, but this is still quite a wide range, including, of course, all the aromatic Mediterranean herbs. The hot sun intensifies their scent, immediately transforming them from a plant in the garden to a delicious ingredient in the kitchen. They look great too, of course, with their flowers and the structure that they add, but above all, it's the way that they can enrich the simplest food that makes them essential. We don't grow parsley or basil in the herb garden because we use them in such quantities that they need a lot of room, so they go in with the vegetables.
Yeah, all this way.
When growing food at home, it's best to try and avoid a glut, but as far as basil's concerned, we feel there's no such thing as too much. This harvest is a summer event, and the whole family gets roped in to help. Each in their own way, of course. By July, the plants are big and bushy, but the leaves are still tender. By cutting the plants rather than pulling them up, we get a second harvest in September, as long as there isn't an early frost.
Right, Tom, have a nice time working there.
Once cut, the basil must be quickly processed before it loses its intense flavour, so we immediately transform the leaves into our favourite pesto sauce.
Oh, look, fantastic. The basil squad.
The basil leaves are chopped up together with garlic, pine nuts and olive oil to create pesto, which is a fabulous fresh sauce for pasta, but it also freezes very successfully. Use 6 ounces of basil leaves per batch. If you're using pot-grown basil, strip the leaves from about 10 plants, and it makes enough sauce for 12 people. Green basil is the best choice for pesto. Chop it coarsely in a food processor for a few seconds, but not too long at this stage, or else it becomes soupy. We use 2 or 3 cloves of fresh garlic. It's a matter of taste, of course, so experiment. Add 1/3 of a pint of good olive oil, which gives the pesto a really silky consistency.
Okay, now we need 2 ounces of pine nuts.
Pine nuts give the pesto a bit of a crunchy texture and also add a vital richness to the sauce. The final ingredient is parmesan, 3½ ounces. But if you're making pesto to freeze, leave the cheese out now and add it just before using the sauce when you defrost it. We try to make our frozen supplies last until spring, when it's time to start growing basil all over again. Growing basil is as easy as making pesto. You need some organic potting compost, to which you add the same volume of perlite, and this creates a loose, free-draining medium in which most herbs thrive. Resist compressing the mix down when you're filling the seed tray. Sow the seeds thinly and top off with a protective layer of vermiculite to stop the compost forming a crust after watering, and as always, label immediately before you forget what you sown. 3 weeks later, The tiny seedlings are ready for their own pot.
Hold it by the leaves. And can you see there how it's got really quite a developed root system?
We don't want to damage that.
Just make a hole. I've mixed lots of perlite in the growing medium. And don't firm it down or anything. Just leave it like that and we'll water it in.
Young plants need warmth to flourish, but you don't need a greenhouse. A windowsill will do the job very well. Basil is the ideal companion for tomatoes, as they share the same love of rich soil, lots of sun and regular watering. By June, the danger of frost is normally past and it's safe to plant basil outside, but don't forget to harden them off first by leaving them outside during the day and then bringing them in at night. You do this for about a week. Basil is an unusually thirsty herb, so never let it dry out. A lack of water will lead to a woody plant with leathery leaves, which is not so tasty. A long, sunny summer is good news for basil. And the better the weather in June and July, the bigger the harvest. When the white flowers begin to appear, this is the time to get picking. I'm always impatient to taste the first basil of the year, so after adding the parmesan, it's time to eat the fresh pesto. There is nothing like your own fresh basil for that pungent, deeply aromatic flavour.
I got some flowers for you.
Oh, those are fantastic.
Some
See?
flowers, Flora.
They're a perfect match for you.
Can I have some supper?
Pesto is one of the fixed seasonal landmarks in our home life, and the scent alone makes me think of those few precious meals eaten in the garden in the high days of summer.
He comes out.
And actually, you don't need a garden even. A few pots grown on a windowsill will give you the raw materials to experience absolutely fresh pesto. So anyone can do it. We grow a variety of herbs so that we can pick at least something fresh year-round. By mid-spring, the herbs are growing fast and make a superb filling for an omelette made with newly laid eggs from our hens. It's the simplest fast food there is. We normally have to replenish our stock of laying hens in the spring, as inevitably foxes get in and kill some of them. A nearby farmer raises traditional rare breeds overlooking the Shropshire Hills.
Beautiful, isn't it?
The children, of course, want to select the most wacky-looking birds, but we're looking for reliable layers rather than pets.
Corner it here. You can have.
They form part of the great organic cycle. They eat up the kitchen waste and, in return, supply us with tasty eggs.
Right. Across. There we are.
It'll actually be a few weeks before this lot start producing any eggs at all, and they will be a lot of work, but they look very good, and they do produce delicious eggs. Eating fast food doesn't mean eating rubbish, and it's amazing just how fast you can rustle up an omelette where fresh herbs are the stars, rather than just a mere garnish. You need to have a bit of that. Luckily, laying hens, whether small bantams or exotic birds with funny hairdos, are at their most productive in late spring and summer, which coincides with an abundance of fresh herbs. Conrad. The secret with fresh herbs is to cut them at the last possible moment before use, and it's fun just to pick and mix, choosing the herbs which look lush and irresistible.
I got you a few herbs.
Oh, well done. What have you got?
Parsley, chives, some oregano and some fantastic thyme.
Okay, you get ready, because this is not going to take long. How many eggs do you want?
Can I have one big one and two little bantam eggs? And I'll just set the table.
Okay, I haven't got that many bantam eggs. Whoa, there we go. Lovely. Right, just mix those very lightly, not too much. Salt, sea salt. A good pinch, but Sarah doesn't like it too salty. A bit of freshly ground pepper. In fact, lots of freshly ground pepper. Now the herbs. It's just something you cannot buy. A herbs picked literally minutes ago. I like these herbs very crudely chopped. It doesn't want to be all lots of little neat bits. It should be almost like a salad. A splash of oil.
That's something. Oh, wine.
Can use butter, but oil is easier in many ways because it doesn't burn. And that wants to be really hot, smoking hot. And there wants to be momentum about all this because it's got to be eaten fresh. So the table wants to be laid, everything wants to be ready. We've got the egg ready to go in. It's hot, we want to hear it sizzle. Don't put the herbs in until the egg is starting to set. Now the herbs. Big, good handful of herbs. Be generous with it. And it doesn't matter what herbs you use, as long as they're fresh and leafy. So it tends to be parsley, chives, marjoram, whatever. That is the business. Done. It's going to break up a bit.
That's fantastic.
There we are. Whoosh. There we are.
The great food writer Elizabeth David called a book of favourite meals an omelette and a glass of wine. And the truth is that simple, home-produced fast food can be really special.
But it must be eaten immediately out the pan.
Spring is the ideal time to think about renewing your stock of herbs. Freshness is everything. Herbs are an essential part of almost every meal we eat, but as well as their obvious practical uses, they're very beautiful plants. And an area of the garden devoted to them always has a particularly tranquil atmosphere. And there's a wide range from purple sage to the shiny hard green leaves of bay and the light airiness of fennel. And whatever you do grow, they're all going to be remarkably trouble-free. And quite a few of them, like oregano, thyme and chives, are very easy to grow from seed. As with basil, loosely fill a tray with seed compost, mix with perlite and smooth it off. Although the seeds can be tiny, do try and sow them as thinly as possible, as it makes life much easier when it comes to pricking them out. Water the seeds and leave them to germinate in a warm place. Then prick out the seedlings into their own pots about a month later. By May, when the sun has warmed up the soil, it's time to plant out the herbs that we've nurtured from seed. These herbs like conditions which mimic their native Mediterranean, which means very well drained soil and maximum sun. Thyme is slow to mature, so you might want to buy established plants whilst waiting for your homegrown ones to grow. Herbs are at their best at the height of summer, when the hot sun concentrates their flavour, but don't let them get too parched. This is also the time to give your herbs a good haircut. Cutting them back encourages fresh, new growth, so be brave. You can trim back all the growth on herbs like thyme and oregano. They'll soon grow back. If you don't cut chives, they develop purple punky flowers, which are good fun. But that way you lose their subtle garlicky flavour. And so if you cut them back regularly, you get good fresh growth. Growing from seeds is the cheap and easy way to fill your kitchen with fresh herbs. But another way of getting extra chives for free is by dividing the plants.
Chives are definitely the easiest herb to grow. And they get really big. And the roots are matted and fibrous. So if you just get a spade or a knife and chop them up, whatever size you want, not only do you get more plants, but also it rejuvenates them and they grow better. So if you're making a little hedge, as I am here with them, we just space them out, plant them, and that's all there is to it.
Gardening, like cooking, is made all the easier when you have the right utensils, and I have to confess an obsession with good gardening tools.
I really love
garden tools, and I've been collecting them over the years, and now I've got masses and a whole load of forks. I love forks because I love the way the handles and the prongs, and although I've got lots, actually most of them have a different function, just minute differences, and you may only use one of them occasionally, but it's nice having the right tool. And they're all in order, so you've got forks there, you come around to spades, and of all the spades, I only ever use one, which is this one. It was made at the Wigan factory. I saw it being made, and the handle put on. And it's perfect balance. It's my spade, and it's moulded to me. And I'll be really sad if ever that had to go. I've got about 5 slashers, and I put handles on them recently. And they're beautiful tools. Probably use that about once or twice a year. So if you've got 5, that's enough for 10 years. Over here we have the rakes. And this one is the one I always use. And it's a real knobbly old job. Probably not very good, but it feels good whenever I have it. Whenever I have it, I want to rake. And there's a dragging one for breaking down and a landscaping one. And I'm always on the lookout for tools for special jobs. Loads of old hoes. Hoes come really cheap. You can get those at sales, but I always end up using 2. This one, which is held on by a rusty old nail, and an old broomstick handle, but great for getting in amongst plants, and that which I keep really sharp and use all the time. And the whole point about these tools is that as I've collected them over years and rehandled them, I know them. I know them all really intimately, and they give me fantastic pleasure beyond the use that they have. In the past, there's been a misconception that being organic is a branch of vegetarianism, but we are very definitely meat eaters. In the field opposite, a farmer raises a few lambs for us each year. They aren't certified organic, but they're very well cared for, and we've watched them grow from birth. And frankly, it's hard to beat grilled leg of lamb marinated with fresh garlic and a great big bunch of rosemary and masses of thyme.
Now, how about that for garlic?
If you're buying your meat from a butcher, get them to bone and butterfly the leg of lamb and trim off any excess fat and skin.
Oh, nice tasty lamb.
Squeeze on the juice of a whole lemon.
There we go. I never know if flowers change the taste of thyme.
And then be generous with the fresh thyme and rosemary. The tender young meat absorbs all these flavours really well.
Now what?
Lemon juice,
Done that.
oil.
Then pour on about 4 tablespoons of olive oil and season with salt and pepper.
Can I borrow your knife?
Finally, we cover the lamb with 4 plump cloves of fresh garlic. And then you kind of massage the lamb with the marinade so it absorbs all these delicious flavours.
Yeah.
And how long does that have to wait?
Well, at least a couple of hours. And you can leave it for longer. Overnight if you want, but we've got plenty of time to let it marinate.
Rosemary is an evergreen, so you can use it the year round. And a good way of maintaining your stocks that's both easier and quicker than growing from seed is to take cuttings. When it comes to growing herbs from cuttings, you must have a sharp knife. So you make a really clean cut, taking off about 6-inch lengths of this rosemary. And then, when you've taken your cuttings, always put them in a plastic bag, seal it over and pop them up quickly. And the reason you've got to hurry is because, to me, this is like casualty. There has been a disaster. That's dying. The leaves are losing water. There's no way of replacing it. So what we've got to do is to encourage it to develop its own life support system, the roots, to save its life. So we've got to be fast, but we've also got to do everything correctly. Now, the compost must be loose, and I add builder's sharp sand. It's very good for cuttings. You mix it in at least 50-50. Then take a pot and fill it, but don't ram it down. Just fill it up and shake it loose like that. Doesn't need any nourishment. It's just so the roots can develop in it. Now, this is where you've got to be brutal. You take the leaves that are going to be underneath the soil and strip them off. Drastic, but remember, this is surgery. And the reason you take them off is because they would just rot underground. And this is a fragile, invalid plant. We want nothing to damage its health. You get your sharp knife, and this time it must be really sharp, and just cut it again, so it's a clean cut. A few more leaves off, and just stick it in like that. Now, the next thing to do is water it lightly, just so it's moist. And then get another bag and put it over it. Now, the point about this is to keep the atmosphere around it humid. Tie it up with a lackey band, and as it respires, the moisture hits the bag and goes back down, so it's sort of returning that healing moisture to it. And all the time, it's busy making roots. If you've got a bit of heat underneath it, all well and good. Best place would be a cool windowsill with a radiator underneath it. Not in bright sunshine, because that will just burn it. West-facing windowsill, leave it there for about a month, and in that time, it should save its own life. And you can do this. It doesn't have to be just rosemary. You can do it with thyme, you can do it with sage, tarragon, hyssop does very well from cuttings, and lavender. Any of the more woody plants take from cuttings very well indeed. You take this year's fresh growth, about August, July, August, September time, and by next year, you'll be able to plant them out.
Rosemary is the dominant herb in our lamb marinade, but if you have to have mint sauce, you can at least grow your own. Mint is the thug of the herb garden. It's so invasive that once raised from seed, it has to be put in a separate container. Anything would do, as long as it's got drainage holes in the bottom, and put plenty of crocks or broken pots in the bottom, just to aid the drainage. Just make a hole for each plant, and then once you've planted them, firm them in. You don't need very many in the pot because they spread so quickly.
This is the last one because mint's very prolific and will soon fill up this container.
After a few weeks, the mint can look a bit straggly and tired, so the best thing to do is cut it back quite hard and then give it a good feed with a seaweed fertiliser, which is very rich in nutrients.
Meals eaten in the garden do require a bit more effort, but they are worth it. Whether you're barbecuing it outside or grilling it in an oven indoors, the lamb cooks best with strong heat.
You're crappy.
Sear the lamb on both sides to seal in the juices, and then cook for about 50 minutes per side, depending on the size of the joint and how rare you like it.
Won't it be overcooked on the outside and pink in the middle?
Well, it's be very... Quick, put the plate nearer, that's it.
That's it, well done.
The pungent smell of burning rosemary fills the air, and there's something almost purifying about it. Herbs work a subtle but unique magic, enhancing other ingredients to something greater than the sum of their parts. They transform ordinary, everyday food into something very special.
Would you like a potato?
I'm a turkey.
That's so fantastic.
You know what we should do?
It's worth it.
No, the other one, please.
It's not open, is it?
Well, I'll open.
That isn't the summer. It's easy.